Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jose, and in today's video we're going to do a quick recap of last night's episode of AEW Dynamite. Now, I know in a previous video I mentioned I wanted to do more content regarding professional wrestling. It's something that I've been very passionate about, a sport that I just love to talk about, and I'm excited to share this with you guys on this channel. I'm going to be doing a lot more recaps of each episode, whether it is Dynamite, whether it's Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown. I wanted to do a recap and give out my own opinion on the daily news that is regarding professional wrestling. My ultimate goal is really to just talk about professional wrestling and promote it for those that aren't familiar with it or who don't watch it on a regular basis, just to convince you guys that, you know what, hey, it's worth a shot. And for those that are already watching it, just to join in the conversation. Go ahead and comment down below what you thought of last night's episode, and who are some of your favorite stars, whether it's from AEW or from WWE or another company. So as we opened AEW Dynamite Fight for the Fallen, Jon Moxley and Rush were scheduled to have a world title match, the AEW world title. It has been said on commentary that Rush had not been pinned in a year, which is always nice to hear from the commentators because it really elevates one of the stars. For those who are not familiar with Rush, you're given information from the commentary team, and that really elevates him as a star and as a threat to Jon Moxley. Early on in the match, Rush takes control of Mox. There's even times where he's biting Mox in the forehead, leading to blood, which is always an interesting sight and a controversial topic for many wrestling fans. Some believe that it's maybe a little excessive. So I think always when you use blood sparingly, it really elevates the fight itself. Early in the match, we see Mox use repeated kicks to the head of Rush, which is, a la reference to Bryan Danielson, who we'll talk about later into the night. The match itself was very competitive, back and forth, hard hitting, a typical opener for AEW. They always like to introduce something exciting to the crowd, get them involved, and really just set the tone for the overall night. Towards the back end of the match, Jose, the assistant, distracts the referee. It leads to an interference from Andrade, and as a result, the Lucha Brothers, Pentagon and Phoenix, they come in and make the save, try to drive him out of the arena. But the match ends via submission with Jon Moxley coming out victorious. I thought this match was really good, especially for an opener. We get to see Jon Moxley, a fighting world champion, while CM Punk is dealing with his injury. But the celebration wouldn't last too long as Chris Jericho and members of the Jericho Appreciation Society, they arrive. One quick thing I wanted to make note of was that Chris Jericho's been wrestling for 30 years, and the level of consistency that he has been able to produce, as well as the content that he's been able to make regarding his character changes and evolving as a person and as a gimmick, it's really refreshing. And to see him always come out and cut promos and still be a presence in the wrestling world, it's always a welcoming sight. In this promo, Chris Jericho, introduces the idea of him challenging for the AEW World Title. He thinks that as a result of him defeating Eddie Kingston in last week's episode, that he's now, thrown his name into the list of contenders. And Moxley, always the fighting champion, agrees. He says, yeah, I'll fight you. You know what I mean? He'll take him on, but he doesn't want to face Le Champion. He doesn't want to face this new version of Chris Jericho. He wants to face the Lionheart, the guy he grew up watching in Japan 30 years ago. Which is always nice, and it's a cool callback to wrestling fans who've followed it for years or who've studied the names and the careers of these wrestlers. And so to hear the name Lionheart, really refreshing. I like when they reference the past as a way to move forward with the wrestling content. In this same promo, they have Anna Jay come out and kind of she did her best with the promo. I mean, she's not typically known to be a heel. She was always with the Dark Order and kind of in the background, always present, but never really had the spotlight on her. One thing I will note is that in her promo, she was mentioned that she would choke out everyone in the arena, but she would repeatedly say, I'm gonna choke you out, I'm gonna choke you out. And just the way it was delivered, I really wasn't a fan of. I mean, obviously, maybe talking on the mic isn't her strong suit, but to be fair, she is relatively new. She only started, I believe, wrestling a couple of years ago. And obviously, it takes time, and she'll develop real nice. But that's one thing I didn't know. I didn't really enjoy. The match itself, Moxley and Rush, I thought it was fantastic. I'm going to give it a big fat yay. But as for Anna Jay's promo, I'll give it a nay. I just wasn't really a fan of it. I'm hoping that as we go into this feud deeper and into the developments of what her run will be with the Jericho Appreciation Society, I'm hoping that we see some development. I'm hoping that we see more reasoning as to why she joined, and just not for the shock value, but also just for it to be logical. Shortly after this match, Excalibur, announces that they have new AEW trio titles, which is something that has been rumored for quite some time now. I'm interested to see what they're going to do with it. I know they announced it's going to be a tournament leading to All Out to crown the first ever AEW trio titles. Later in the night, we kind of see a tease of the Young Bucks and Adam Hangman Page together. I'm thinking maybe that's who's going to win the inaugural titles. But AEW likes to do this thing where they'll really tease one thing and then out of left field go with another direction. Aside from Hangman and the Bucks, I'm not really sure who would win it. I mean, you have factions like the Jericho Appreciation Society. You have, the Blackpool Combat Club. So they have different outlets to go with, but I do think that the safe bet is the Bucks and Adam Page. We cut to another promo. Dante Martin, he announces that he's going to have Sky Blue in his corner for his match against Sammy Guevara. I think this is real smart. I'm always a big fan of portraying our baby faces as, intelligent beings. I don't like when they make them dumber than what they actually are. So for him to introduce Sky Blue into his corner, I think it makes sense. Obviously, Sammy Guevara is going to have, tonykahn right next to him. And now with Anna Jay present, who knows, maybe they'll bring out both. But to have Sky Blue in his corner, I thought, okay, good move, makes sense. Now in this next segment, it's for the FTW World Title. Ricky Starks versus Danhausen. Danhausen, I feel like, is a polarizing figure, especially, for some wrestling fans, because either they really love him or they don't. It's not for everybody's taste. I find him very entertaining. Some weeks, I'm not going to lie, there are some weeks where it's like, okay, I didn't really see the point of something. But for the most part, I think Danhausen's fun. I think, it is what it's meant to be. It's supposed to be entertaining. We're not going to see this guy win a world title, And to see Ricky Starks be presented in the way that he was, with that opening package before he came out, I think Ricky Starks is great. I think he has star power potential. I always mention this to my brother. I feel like he has this young rock aura to him, whether it's the way that he speaks, whether it's the way that he competes, the way that he's presented. I think Ricky Starks is just great. He wins the match, in less than about 2 minutes with a hellacious spear to Danhausen. I think he has one of the best spears. It's not, one of the most powerful spears. I mean, you look at a guy like Roman Reigns who has a powerful spear, but the way it looks, Ricky Starks' spear, I think, is one of the best, finishes in AEW. After winning the match, Ricky Starks says, that's not enough. We're going to open up another challenge. He's inviting another competitor to come out and challenge him for his FTW championship. And who answers? Hook. Hook comes out to a raucous ovation by the crowd, and it would lead to a real awesome match. I mean, again, these weren't really long matches. The entire segment with Ricky Starks was probably 15 minutes. But to see him go at it with Hook and just electrifying the crowd was into it, Hook was into it, Ricky Starks was selling like a madman. It was great. Hook counters the Rochambeau into the Red Rum, making Ricky Starks tap out. And after the match, we show a sign of respect where Ricky Starks extends his hand, gets a fist bump from Hook. Just a real cool match, a real cool segment highlighting two great young stars in Hook and Ricky Starks. Coming out of the commercial break, we have Tony Schiavone, Ricky Starks, and Hobbs in the ring. And Ricky Starks cuts this, awesome promo, just exclaiming that, my time is now, that there are no mistakes, that we just had some bumps in the road. But as he's lost the FTW championship, he teases that he and Hobbs are going to go after the tag team championships. Hobbs blindsides him, lays him out, and this really got an audible reaction out of me because I wasn't expecting it. Because if you're following the reports, a lot of reports were saying that Hobbs and Starks were going to be, part of the tag team division with guys like, Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee, the Bucks, the Lucha Brothers, Jurassic Express, and so on. So to see him get blindsided by Hobbs, not only is it confirming that, okay, Ricky Starks is now a babyface, but we're going to see a monster run by Hobbs. I'm curious to see what they do. I'm curious to see if it's going to lead to a match at All Out. I'm a fan of Ricky Starks. I think he looked great in this segment. He came out as a great babyface, as a fighting babyface, and Hobbs came out looking strong, looking like a monster heel. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do here. Taz on commentary really sold it well, as he was kind of blindsided himself, asking what the hell is Hobbs doing. Again, Hook is the new AFTW champion, and now Hobbs and Starks, feuding. Team Taz is basically obliterated, no longer existing. Again, I think this is a great start for a run for Ricky Starks, and I'm hoping that it leads to something even bigger and better. His last year on the AEW roster has been noteworthy. He's been giving good promos. He's been in good matches. I think it's now ready, time for him to take that next step, and I'm really excited to see what goes on. After a quick promo from the Acclaim backstage, who, real quick as a side note, the Acclaim really grew on me. Initially, I wasn't a fan, I don't know, I didn't see it. But then the more these guys came on television, the more they would come out and, you know, do their rap entrances, and they really got over with the crowd, with the scissors and them in the gun club. I think the Acclaim are one of the best things on this show. Every time I see them, I have to stop what I'm doing and just listen to what they're saying. Always really fun. And I like their program going on with the gun club. It's solid promo by the Acclaim. So initially, that FTW title match between, you know, Ricky Starks, Danhausen, and then Hook, for me, I thought, okay, how is it going to elevate? I thought that was going to be like, you know, match or segment of the night. But then Sammy Guevara and Dante Martin come out, and it's just exactly what you would expect, a high-flying affair. From then on, I think then this took over as my match of the night, segment of the night. Of course, you know, Sammy Guevara being able to play the heel well. I remember telling my brother that I think a heel Sammy is the best Sammy. I think he just plays that cocky heel so well, that arrogant guy who thinks he's the best. He has the girl, he has the looks, he has the moves. I think Sammy Guevara was one of the best heels in that company. And then you have a guy like Dante Martin, young, athletic, again, real promising talent, and I'm excited to see what they do with him moving forward, just, you know, especially after what happens in this match. But going back to the beginning of the match, we have Sammy Guevara and Dante Martin really trade aerial attacks, and then to the point where Sammy Guevara begins to leave the match, and it looks like he's going to the back, but then Dante Martin comes out, lays him out, you know, on the stage, and then takes a big senton from the stage heading into the break. And those are the kind of athletic moves that I just find so fascinating. In fact, my sister stopped by and she was watching this match, and I knew, okay, great, this is a match I know she can get into, because just seeing the acrobatic and the athleticism that these athletes are putting on display, it really grabs the attention of an audience member. As we come back from the break, Dante Martin, he goes for a big dive but gets caught by a huge knee by Sammy Guevara. And again, it goes back to those mentions and those comments of people saying like, oh, well, you know, it's fake. I don't know, man. That knee to Dante Martin looked pretty stiff. It looked pretty solid. It looked great. But I mean, you know, you really heard the impact of his knee meeting Dante's face. After that, Dante and Sammy kind of trade two Spanish flies, which I always think is a fascinating move. I love seeing the Spanish fly, whether it's a standing Spanish fly or just coming off the top rope. But then it leads into a double springboard by Sammy into a cutter, and then finally him finishing off the match with the GTH. Sammy gets the win. Of course, after the match, Sky Blue and Dante Martin get beat down by the heels, but then Ruby Soho, Eddie Kingston, and Ortiz make the save. Real curious to see what, you know, they do moving forward with that storyline. Not really the team I would expect. You know, Kingston, Ortiz, Ruby, Sky Blue, and Dante. But I mean, I don't know. I trust AEW. They typically know how to put on entertaining matches. I'll go ahead and give this segment a big yay. I was a big fan of this. It was fun. It was entertaining. It gave me everything I wanted in wrestling, and you know, progressing a storyline, but also giving me entertaining action in between. We move on from, you know, one of the best matches of the night to probably the best promo of the night. Jungle Boy comes out with Luchasaurus, and of course he's going to address, you know, the actions of last week, him returning, you know, scaring off Christian Cage, who attacked him a couple weeks ago, turning heel in the process. I'm a big fan of Jungle Boy. You know, I like the moves, I like the look, I like the story that they're telling with Jungle Boy. You know, they're heavily relying on his father, Luke Perry, but I feel like that's the kind of content they want to produce in order to get an audience member to support Jungle Boy. He comes in real hot, yelling at the camera, yelling about Christian Cage, and it's real personal for him, of course, because when a man talks about another man's family member, and in this case his father, he's gonna come out, you know, hot. You know, of course he's gonna be upset. And I'm really excited to see what Cage and Jungle Boy are going to do. I think Christian Cage is going through one of the best heel runs of his career. Christian has always been a great heel, whether it was in WWE back in, you know, the Ruthless Aggression era, or even his feud with Randy Orton. Christian has always been able to present himself as a hateable heel, but also a guy that makes sense and has reasoning. Now, although the reasoning for this, you know, feud isn't, you know, as airtight as we would like, he claims that as a result of losing the Battle Royal to Jungle Boy a year ago, that lost out, you know, a bonus that he would have received from the AEW. And then, you know, as a ploy, he was going to team up with Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, lead them to the tag team championship, and then just have them start crumbling and, you know, losing and really just failing as a team. But it backfires. They win the tag team titles, they go on this decent reign, and now he decides, you know, yeah, it's time for me to turn Jungle Boy, and they lead to this feud. Jungle Boy really came out looking strong here, and I'm thinking they're going to do a feud at All Out. All Out's already having these feuds, set in motion and what they're going to do, and I'm looking forward to it. Of course, as always, All Out usually, is a great show, as is any other pay-per-view that AEW promotes. From there, we head into a 2-on-1 handicap match between Swerve Strickland, Tony Nese, and Strong Mark Sterling. Nothing eventful here. I mean, obviously some shenanigans from Mark Sterling. There's a big super kick to Tony Nese that leads to a double boot to his chest from Strickland. It ends with a big kick to the side of Sterling's head for a win by Swerve Strickland. And one thing that to make note of, Keith Lee was obviously, he was banned from ringside as a result of this match. But in the back, the cameras show that he's left unconscious by a debuting Josh Woods, leaving some people, kind of puzzled as to who he is. I mean, obviously, whenever there's a new face and people aren't familiar with his work, obviously there's a little confusion. But is there a possible collusion between Nese and Woods? Are we going to see them as a tag team? Are they going to team up against Swerve and Our Glory? I don't know, but one thing I do want to mention is Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee are so good. I mean, these guys really know how to capture my attention at the very least. Their theme music, to their moves, to their presence. I love Swerve and Our Glory. Separate, they're great. Together, they're greater. I'm happy they won the tag team championships. I'm hoping they go on a decently long reign. I think these two are they're just great. I'm big fans of Lee and Strickland. Finally, we reached the AEW Women's title match, Thunder Rosa versus Miyu, who earned a title match after an upset victory last week in Japan. Solid match. I think the women's division in AEW has a lot of potential, although they're not really consistent. Aside from your Thunder Rosas and aside from your Britt Bakers, Jade Cargill's been great as of late with her winning streak as the TBS champion. But this was a real technical beginning to the match, and then it really laid in some stiffness from Thunder Rosa and Miyu. There was this one spot where she had Miyu, kind of leaning against the bottom ropes, and she does a running drop kick into her chest, and it's just real stiff. I mean, you really feel the hits when you're facing Thunder Rosa. It was a better match than I thought it was going to be, especially considering I only knew Thunder Rosa. I wasn't very familiar with Miyu, but overall a nice match. Rosa wins. There's a handshake, again showing the consistency and respect throughout the night. Thunder Rosa wins, solid match. And then finally, we get to our main event. Bryan Danielson returns after missing what seems to be a couple months of action. He takes on Daniel Garcia, and in what's being billed as a technical match, we're looking at the young gun Danny Garcia versus Bryan Danielson, the veteran. A big running boot to start the match, and we're all action going in. Bryan Danielson, it's nice to see him back. He has a connection with the audience that is unmatched ever since his run, in WWE. It's just that type of love. It's like that Mick Foley type of love where he can really do no wrong. He's become so endeared with the audience that no matter what happens, babyface or heel, we always want to see Bryan. We always want to see him, at his best. There's a huge spot on the concrete where Garcia, pulls a DDT on Bryan Danielson, and Bryan Danielson's really selling this head injury. And on commentary, they're doing it. In match, they're doing it. They're really trying to sell you that this guy is, he's missed some time. He's obviously rusty. He's hurt. And we've known in the past his issues with concussions, whether, again, it was in WWE or most recently. And that's one thing that they've always managed to do with Bryan Danielson, or should I say he's been able to do, is he's made it possible for us as audience members to feel for him, to empathize with him, and to sympathize with what he's going through because of the pain and the level of, the beating that he's taking from his opponents, knowing that he has these issues with his neck and his concussions. Just like Moxley, there's a little bit of blood. Garcia, bites down on Bryan Danielson's forehead. Towards the end of the match, as Jericho would call it, the Hand of Doom, which was revealed to be Hager, grabs Bryan Danielson for the distraction. Garcia wins via submission. Although he did not submit, he passed out. And that was one thing I was thinking about. I was like, are they going to make Danielson tap out? Because it's very interesting to see a guy of his stature in terms of technical wrestling. Are they going to make him tap out? But no, they had him pass out, which I always think is a smarter route. You don't want to overdo it, but at the same time, you want to make it so that both guys are looking strong. Danielson wins the match in what could be considered an upset, but Danielson never, actually gave up. He passed out, which is always, real big in terms of keeping both guys looking strong. I think it was clearly match of the night. Segment of the night, I would have to give it to the Ricky Starks whole saga between him, Danhausen, and Hook, and then Hobbs. But match of the night goes to Garcia, Danielson. I'm looking forward to Rampage, seeing what they're going to do there. Also, as next week's AEW Dynamite. Let me know what you guys thought about this week's episode. Who are some of your favorites, and what was your favorite segment of the match? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on the video. And as always, my name is Jose, and I'll catch you in the next video.